Welcome to the Barker Podcast Collection.
I suck, you suck, I suck at Call of Duty. You suck. You suck. You suck.
Welcome to the Not Playing Podcast. My name's Rob Howard, and this week it's just me. But in the interest of actually having an episode this week, I thought I would just record something quickly. It's Sunday afternoon, and I had quite a heavy night last night, and it's almost 30 degrees in the UK today. So bear with me. But yeah, what I thought I'd do is I just thought we're just over halfway through the year, and I thought I would go through what I consider to be the best 5 games I've played so far this year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many of these make it into my top 5 at the end of the year. So yeah, at 5 I've got Darkest Dungeon, which I have to say ultimately was not the most enjoyable experience perhaps, but I just really admire the way it's put together. You know, it takes kind of a dungeon crawling template and kind of focuses more on the kind of stresses of dungeon delving. Really, you know, wears its Cthulhu mythos on its sleeve, and yeah, I still haven't finished it. I've put in about 20 hours, but I think it's the kind of game that I'll be going back to for a long time. And the developers, Red Hook, seem to be continuing to support it and update it way past its full release. It's a shame that, you know, it had to deal with that whole early access thing where, you know, so much of the hype around it has kind of died down now. But you know, if it's for that, if it's for the game existing, then you know I can't complain. Anyway, that's my number 5 right now. At number 4, I've got Rise of the Tomb Raider. You know, possibly not as awesome as its predecessor, but still a highly enjoyable action adventure. Really cool sort of cross between an open world design, but with some pretty cool sort of traditional platforming action challenges. Wouldn't say it was especially challenging actually, but I guess you can up the difficulty if that's your bag. But it's just really enjoyable game. I love the way that the game was built around these kind of big open hub areas that sort of had these more linear encounters that kind of happened around the periphery of those big open areas, and plenty of opportunity to revisit locations should you want to do your platinum trophy, or well, you can't do a platinum trophy yet because the game still isn't out on PS4, but certainly if you were going for it on 100% on Steam and all that. But yeah, like incredible visuals as well, and the animation and motion capture, just absolutely mind blowing if you can run it at really high difficulties. There's some DLC for that, I think, but I still haven't got to it yet. But yeah, I probably will do at some point. At number 3, I've got Firewatch, which I thought was just a really kind of awesome example of what you can achieve when you just the purity of its design. I still really like the fact that there were all these systems that they were going to have in there, which ultimately wouldn't have served the overall goal of the game, which was to tell a story really about 2 people kind of out in the wilds, learning about themselves and each other, and getting over a kind of family tragedy, as it spells out quite sort of early on in the game. But yeah, won't spoil that obviously. Beautiful art style. Apparently the guy Ollie Moss, who did the the visuals. Hadn't actually worked on a game before, and I think that kind of worked in its favour because it lent the game a real sort of cartoony aesthetic, and the ability to sort of take pictures, and they even make like taking screenshots like sort of part of the game really. It's just lovely to just sort of be in that world, and yeah, I had a really good time. At number 2, I've got the remake of Doom, the reboot for this year. Really surprised actually. Prior to the game coming out, there was a lot of worry that it wasn't going to be up to much because they seemed reluctant to send out review copies, but I thought it was great fun. Haven't played a game like that for so long. I love the way that there was barely any need to change up your guns. Like, you know, you just run around. The way I played it anyway was just run around and shoot the things that were most appropriate for the weapon I had equipped at the time, and then I would, you know, wait till I got the rocket launcher before I started wasting the big guys. Lots of cool alternate fire modes, and just like this elaborate dance of death as you bounce around these maps, you know, just unloading at whatever is in your face at the time. But yeah, it was a pretty hefty campaign actually, and it took me a good sort of 11 or 12 hours to get through. I have to say though, it wasn't a game that I could sort of mainline for hours on end. I did end up sort of, you know, playing one mission, and then when it prompts you to save and quit, I would, because I didn't want to kind of overdo it and get sick of it. I think it's a game that lends itself to, like, you know, protracted play. Well, certainly for me anyway, but your mileage may vary. But yeah, I was really surprised by Doom. Didn't touch the multiplayer or any of the map building stuff. That's not really my bag. But, you know, I still feel like I got my money's worth with that single player campaign, which is kind of what Doom's all about really. And my number 1, and I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because I have a feeling we'll be discussing it on a future podcast. I know for a fact that Ian's been playing it, and Patrick means to, even though it's not a VR game, madly enough. But yeah, that is Inside, the new game from Playdead, and it's absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. It's a short experience, but it's unlike anything you will ever play. It really is, and this is coming from, you know, someone who enjoyed Limbo, but this game is on another level. I think my first thought about it was it's like the difference between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. Like, the first one was seminal. Somehow they've managed to one-up themselves in this case. So yeah, that's kind of how my game of the year is looking so far in 2016. There was a few like surprises that weren't included. XCOM 2, couldn't really get on with that. I do want to come back to it. Unravel was a really nice game, didn't quite make it. And Omega Agent is probably the best thing I've got on the Oculus at the moment, and is an experience I've never been able to have anywhere before. Like, the sensation of flying and stuff is incredible, but you know, I still don't feel like there's quite the level of artistry there that is available outside of VR at the moment. So yeah, I couldn't really include that. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about the games I've played. I've been making an effort to try and get through my backlog, my pile of shame this year. So there's a lot of games I haven't tried yet, but looking forward to No Man's Skies and Deus Ex, the new one of those. Mafia 3, that could go either way. I've heard conflicting things about that. Titanfall 2, looking forward to the single player campaign of that. Might stick around for the multiplayer. The first one was quite fun. Civ 6 if I've got time. Dishonored 2 definitely. Watch Dogs 2 maybe. And the new South Park game, I'm looking forward to that too. So yeah, that's all I've really got to say. Don't want to drag this out too long. It does kind of feel like you're talking to yourself when you're doing these ones, even though I am very much trying to talk straight to you guys, the listeners. And yeah, thanks everyone for continuing to to support us. And you know, I always say about writing into the show, but I really mean it. Like, it'd be great to make it more of a two-way discussion. So, you know, always feel free to tweet at us on notplayingpod and email us at notplayingpod@gmail.com. You can find the show notes for this show at notlistening.co.uk, and if you're listening to us on iTunes, then a 5-star review would go a long way to letting other people be able to find the show. So yeah, that's all. Thanks for listening and bearing with me on my own once again, and yeah, we'll be back with a proper show with more than just me next week. Alright, see ya.
My friend, I'm inclined to agree, 'cause I suck. I suck